So hello and welcome to this supportive information session on healthy relationships. During this session, we're going to be going over some slides and some information relevant to this topic. Given the circumstances of COVID-19, the information shared in this presentation may be helpful for those who are spending an increased amount of time around loved ones, and also for those who are isolating from loved ones during this time. There will be some tips and suggestions around how to maintain effective communication, and this is still relevant to practice at a distance. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christina. I'm an addictions counselor through the Community Opioid Addiction Program at Addiction Services of Thames Valley. Before going through this presentation, I just wanted to advise that I'm looking at two computer screens, one to reference notes and handouts relevant to this presentation, so I apologize in advance. Also, another note before navigating today's topic is some site changes for how to get connected with the agency. So for calls related to services in Elgin County, Oxford County, Middlesex County, and London, the phone number here available on the screen can be utilized to get connected with any support related to these services. So this line is available Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So you'll see that there's different extensions available based on whatever support you're looking for. If you're an individual who's looking to get connected with services, here is the intake support information to get you connected. If you're an existing client who is just looking for some support, maybe needs to get connected with their counselor, doesn't have their contact information, another way of getting that information. If you're a family member who's needing some support during this time, that extension is available for you to access. If you're looking for withdrawal support, the extension here is available for our withdrawal program, so at extension 248. If you're looking for some questions to be answered regarding RAM Clinic, the extension to contact is 281. So additional supports that are available during this time for mental health and or addiction related support. If it's support and crisis, you can call 1-866-933-2023. And there's also a web chat option if that's something you're more comfortable with utilizing. So if you need to talk to someone, if you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, or lonely, calling the support line for some help around that. So as we see here, the support line contact information is there. The reach out crisis information is there. So noticing that these are all 24/7 supports, inclusive to the web chat. Here's also a program that you can access or get connected with during this time through CMHA, and it's called Bounce Back. So it's a tool for managing mild to moderate depression and anxiety, stress, or worry. So I encourage you to make a copy of these phone numbers or just placing them somewhere in your home that's easy for you to remember in case you do need some support. So the next slide, we're just going to go over some tips of how to protect yourself during COVID-19. So COVID-19 is a new illness that can affect your lungs and airways. It's caused by a virus called coronavirus. Practicing good hygiene is the best way to protect against the novel coronavirus and other illnesses in this cold and flu season. So first tip, first and foremost, washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. The other alternative is using hand sanitizer if your hands are not actually covered with dirt. For example, if you're an individual who lives in an apartment building and the entrance is there's often a lot of traffic, so a lot of people coming through the entrance. That means a lot of individuals touching the same door handle. So ensuring that you're using sanitizer to kind of mitigate those risks. Another is to minimize close contact with other people. So practicing that physical distancing. Sit or stand at least 2 meters apart from the other person or maintaining a 6-foot radius. Staying at home if you're sick. So if you have any of the following symptoms, fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, ensuring that you are staying home. If you do have to stay with others or if you live with others, just ensuring that you are still maintaining a 2-meter or 6-foot radius distance from them. If you think you might have the symptoms, you're unsure, and you're feeling a little bit uneasy, there's a free self-assessment available. So if you see this link here, you can copy and paste that into your browser and complete it yourself, just to put yourself at ease if you're feeling like you might have the symptoms. Okay, so if you've attended an SIS at the agency, this might not be something that's new to you. We do grounding exercises at the beginning of every SIS session, just to help clients kind of get comfortable with the information and to keep them engaged throughout the presentation. So as it reads, the purpose of the grounding exercise is to help calm the mind and relax the body. It helps focus on the mind to relax, to be open to improve inner awareness, and support making positive mental or physical changes. Even if you're new to grounding exercises and it's something that you've never practiced before, I encourage you to do your best to just engage and stay focused throughout it. It's a very short exercise and it is for beginners, so I hope that it still does have some value for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn off my camera just for this portion, and I'm going to encourage you to get into a comfortable position. Maybe you need to move to another chair. Maybe you need to go to another room of your home, whatever works better for you. So I'll give you a couple of moments to do that, and then I'll start reading the grounding exercise. So as I mentioned, I'm just going to turn off my camera for a brief moment. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is a simple guided meditation. It gets us to be present in the moment by focusing on and relaxing our bodies. It helps us to literally connect with ourselves. So opening that inner awareness. So I'm going to begin. I'd like you to get comfortable in your chair and relax. Take a deep breath and place your feet flat on the floor, really feeling your feet in contact with the ground underneath you. And just take a few moments with more deep breaths like this. I'd like you to start by focusing on your toes. Scrunch them and then release. Now relax your ankles. Now relax your calf muscles, your knees, and your thigh muscles. Remember, let any thoughts you have float up and away from you, like in an air bubble. Now relax your buttocks. Relax your pelvic area. And start to notice any tension you have in your back. Breathe deeply in, and as you breathe out, slowly relax and release any tension you may have in your back. Now your shoulders. Lift them up and then release completely. Do this several times. Now it's time to relax your neck and your jaw muscles. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, let go of any tension you're holding in your neck and jaw. Finally, the top of your head. I'd like you to hunch your shoulders up one last time. And as you release your shoulders, any remaining tension can sink down and float out of you. Take a few more deep breaths and enjoy this feeling of relaxation and calm for a little while longer. I'd like you to now to slowly bring your attention back to the room. Begin noticing the sounds around you, and when you're ready, open your eyes. Okay, so I'm going to bring my video back on. I hope that was relaxing, and then we will start the presentation. Okay. So this, like I mentioned before, the SIS topic that we're going to be reviewing is healthy relationships. So during this session, we will discuss what the characteristics of a healthy relationship are. We'll examine some barriers to healthy relationships. We'll review some communication strategies, how to cope with conflict, and also discuss dating and recovery. So when we are discussing healthy relationships, any of the information that is shared isn't just relevant to romantic relationships, but it's also relevant to friendships or relationships within family members. There's also some handouts that have been made available to you that will be referenced throughout this presentation. So I encourage you to follow along with these as well. So typically when I am doing this SIS in person, I encourage some clients to identify characteristics of a healthy relationship and characteristics of an unhealthy relationship. So since I'm limited with doing this because of how this is being delivered to you, I'm going to identify some of the common characteristics that clients have identified when the session has been done. I also encourage you to think about some more that you would add to the list. So for example, some healthy traits are respect, trust, support, communication, compassion, honesty, and equality. Some unhealthy traits might include isolation, control of behaviors, harassment, criticism, lack of trust, lack of support, lack of respect, or inequality. So when looking at unhealthy relationships, we can often look at how it's the opposite characteristics of a healthy relationship. So healthy relationships allow for individuals to bring out the best in both people. So it brings out the best in them and the best in the other person. Healthy relationships ultimately help us grow as individuals and allow us to feed off of each other to better ourselves. Just going to the next slide here. Healthy relationships. So healthy relationships, as mentioned, really provide us with the foundation of our own personal growth and our growth as couples. So like I mentioned, not just romantic, but also friends and family members. These characteristics provide us with the ability to feel safe and secure within the relationship. So what is shared on this slide is a list of healthy relationships. So I'm going to go through each of them and just share a little bit of detail that corresponds to it, just so it makes a little more sense. So first and foremost, healthy relationships should include non-threatening behavior. So with that being said, this includes talking and acting so that your partner feels safe and comfortable, doing what they want to do and saying what they want to say. Connected to this is the need for respect within relationships. So respect means listening to your partner non-judgmentally. This means you shouldn't be judging what they say or what they do or second guessing them, but rather just being respectful and attentive to them. Another part of respect is also being emotionally affirming and understanding with your partner. So validating their feelings and doing your best to understand how they are affected, maybe by your actions, by a certain situation, a certain circumstance. So really just being emotionally present. It's important to also respect and value your partner or friend or family member's opinions. It may be different from your own, and that's okay. It may be difficult depending on the opinion of your partner. because it can be different from your own, but you should respect that they are their own person and they have their own set of opinions, values, and beliefs, just like you do. Another important component to a healthy relationship is trust and support. So what this means is that you should respect your partner, again, family or friend, their right to their own feelings, the right to their own friends that they pick, the activities that they choose to engage in, and their opinions. So you should also support your partner's goal in life. Sometimes you might not agree with the goals they have, the decisions that they make, the feelings that they feel, or the friends that they have, but you should ultimately support them. If you do have concerns about certain areas of your partner's life, you should be able to voice them to your partner so that they're aware of how you are feeling and thinking. So we don't want your feelings or your thoughts to go unaddressed as well. There needs to be that communication. So we'll talk about the effective communication strategies later on in the session. The next piece, as seen on the slide here, is honesty and accountability. So it's also very crucial because it assists in opening up truthful communication within the relationship. So this means accepting responsibility for yourself and how decisions you make as an individual can affect the relationship as a whole. This also involves acknowledging past use of violence or any emotionally abusive behavior and changing that behavior. Another important and sometimes difficult component of the aspect of honesty and accountability is admitting when you're wrong about something. This may be challenging to do, but accountability is commonly the root of most conflict. So saying you're wrong doesn't admit loss, such as you won the argument, I lost the argument, but rather it shows that you respect and care for the person. A last characteristic is sharing responsibility. So it's important to ensure your relationship is based on equality. So this means sharing household responsibilities, parental responsibilities if you have children. So every relationship will have their own way of determining what is fair. For example, one person may really like cleaning and one person might not. So it might be appropriate for the first person to take on the cleaning while the other person takes on other tasks such as groceries, laundry, etc. Equality is important because it helps reduce frustrations that may be present, which then affects the way communication is dealt with or held. The next slide is reference to a handout. So I'm going to ask you to reference the handout, Building Healthy Relationships. And I'm just going to go through the main parts with you because this is where we talk about the communication pieces. I'm just going to look at my other computer here to pull that up. Okay. My apologies. So healthy relationships allow for individuality because it brings out the best in both people and invites personal growth. Sorry, one second. Just plugging in a charger. So if we look at the next section of under getting close. So developing meaningful relationships is a concern for all of us. Getting close to others, sharing our joys, our sorrows, our needs, our wants, and affection and excitement is risky business. It's scary, really opening your true self to someone else. What is it that interferes with us getting close to each other? Often it's one or more of these common fears. So I'm just going to scroll down. So fear of becoming known as who we really are. Opening ourselves to others and their reactions is not only difficult for us, but it puts a demand on others to be likewise. So really fearful of getting to know others and them getting to know you. Fear of pain and disappointment. Mass media and advertisers have tried to convince us that we should be 100% happy 24 hours a day. Hurt, pain, disappointment, and loneliness are not comfortable feelings, but they are human, they are natural, and it's okay to experience them. Without the risk of experiencing them, one can never experience loving and being loved. So it kind of comes with the experience of knowing other people. Fear of losing our freedom. Can I risk giving up some of mine to care about you without you wanting to take it all away? Can I be both close and separate with you? So these are great reflection questions to use to help guide you through maybe establishing a new relationship. Fear of being a taker as well as a giver. It's difficult for most of us to receive, yet if we don't, no one can experience the joy of giving to us. So being open to both giving and receiving. Fear of judgment. People are reluctant to disclose themselves because they dread the moral judgment of their friends, family, minister, and law. So just having that judgment of what others may think of you before actually even engaging in the relationship, that in itself is a barrier. Fear that showing love and affection is not proper. This is especially true for men, but not restricted to them. Somehow we have been convinced that this is a sign of weakness rather than a sign of courage. So rewards for conquering our fears of getting close. If we learn to communicate effectively with others and are willing to risk sharing our own feelings and respects with others, many rewards will await us. Obviously, a very special relationship. Getting close means you can need someone else and he or she can need you. It means when you feel discouraged or upset, someone is able to comfort you and to take care of you, and for you to do likewise to them. You can acquire faith in yourself, faith in others, and an ability to be faithful to others. So it enables you to live fully, to be in the present and have meaning and purpose for your own existence. Another reward for conquering the fear of getting close is you become more sensitive to yourself, with choices about how, when, and where you wish to share your feelings. So it's a sense of control. So moving to the art of communication. So when people are asked what the most important ingredient in a relationship is, communication is always on the list. Yet we rarely are taught how to effectively communicate. Communication with others boils down to either expressing ourselves and responding to the other person. Yet the methods for doing so are very different. So the approach for both vary. So if you look at the handout under expressing ourselves, what it's noted here is when you are stating an opinion, making an observation, or expressing a feeling, the most appropriate format to use is called an I statement. You may even hopefully have heard this or have already been using this before. So I statements allow us to state things in positive terms, to express ourselves directly and honestly, and to take accountability for what we feel, for what we think, and what we need, while avoiding blaming or accusing the other person. So in contrast, you statements blame the other person because they puts them in defense mode and often causes communication to be blocked. So to simplify things, we can use a formula for I statements. So if you look at the handout, it says, I feel, think, want, and then you're expressing that thought or desire. And then it actually is a really great equation to help put your thoughts into, or how to express your thoughts to the other person. And then identifying the reason why you feel that way and providing an explanation. The nice thing about this formula is that we can decide how much of it we want to use. It can be just the first one, the first 2 lines at the end of the conversation, whatever that looks like. So responding to others. So as mentioned, this looks a little bit different. So there's some techniques that you can consider using. So when other people are expressing ourselves, it's not appropriate to use I statements when responding. A more effective technique is called reflection. So reflection is saying back in your own words what the individual has shared with you. So the content or feeling of what the other person just said. So reflection does not question, it doesn't challenge, it doesn't argue, or it doesn't disapprove what the individual is sharing with you. I can provide you with some examples or read some examples available on the handout. So for example, sounds like you're feeling, thinking, wanting, and then expressing that emotion or the desire or the thought, and then explaining why. So it sounds like you're angry because, and then explaining what they have shared to you in your own words, just to make sure that you have that understanding. So reflection requires us to listen very carefully to what the other person is actually saying. Yet we also do not have to be right in identifying the emotion or reason we hear, because the speaker will clarify. They'll tell us if we have it right or if we have it wrong. What we need to remember is that when we use reflection, the other person is going to continue talking about what they are experiencing. So we need to make sure that we continue to listen and we have the time to listen to them in that moment. When we first begin using I statements and reflections, it can feel weird. It can feel artificial and not genuine. It doesn't take long for them to start becoming automatic. Experiment with them, and you may find that your discussions with other people become more productive and satisfying. The next section of the handout includes fighting fairly. So a major stumbling block in any relationship is settling disagreements, so which often reduce to emotional shouting matches rather than caring and problem solving. Basic ground rules for effectively facing conflict in a relationship include, so maintaining a good spirit. Remember, you care about the person at the end of the day. Avoid attacking one another. So discuss the behaviors, not the personality. So not getting personal about it, identifying things about with the other person, but rather the actual matter at play, the actual thing that is causing the conflict. Share your feelings, explore and discuss them. Focus on the present. So past disappointments cannot be changed. So concentrating on the here and now. So not bringing up arguments that had took place in the past, rather leaving them there and focusing on the conflict at hand. So the end of this handout provides some specific techniques that you can use. So for example, choosing a time to have the discussion, almost like making it an appointment. Avoid times when either of you are tired or under pressure, just a time where you both have clarity and can talk about what you are feeling or experiencing. Be specific. Take time to reflect on what you are upset about and focus on specific actions, feelings, and attitudes. Listen carefully. So allow each individual uninterrupted time to explain their viewpoint. So not cutting the other person off while they're sharing their experiences or how they're feeling, but rather letting them have the floor. Ask for reasonable change. Determine what you really want from the person. Then ask yourself, is this realistic and authentic? Give the person a chance to correct the situation. Change, as we know, change takes time. So if you're encouraging someone to change a certain action to support you, just giving that time to let it happen. Be willing to compromise. So avoid trying to win. Try to find a solution that is satisfying for the both of you. Realize the need to accept an incomplete resolution of a conflict. So at times, completely resolving an issue might actually be impossible. So just finding a way that you can both come to terms with it effectively and so that it can be moved on. If you have extreme difficulty expressing your feelings, try writing them down in a note or letter. This can even be helpful, writing down how you're feeling before having the conversation with the other individual, just to make sure everything is covered, to make sure all your thoughts and feelings can be addressed. Lastly, after the discussion is over, express your appreciation for the other person and thank them for listening and discussing the issue with you. Reaffirm your respect and affection for each other. And then so you can finish on a positive note so that you can progress forward. So as you notice on the bottom of that handout, it says these strategies can help you establish an atmosphere of cooperative problem solving. If you feel the relationship also has deteriorated to a point where these methods cannot be tried, you may want to consider a neutral, non-judgmental third party to mediate the discussion. So someone who's objective from this situation to provide some support. So we're going to move to the next slide on conflict resolution. Sorry, I'm just bringing my notes back up here. Alrighty. So conflict is a normal part of any relationship. So conflict arises when two people do not agree on something, or as the definition states, come into collision or disagreement. So they can be contradictory or in opposition with each other. So since conflict is a natural part of every relationship, it's necessary to know the skills to deal with conflict as it develops and to resolve it. So we briefly touched on some of these strategies when reviewing the first handout, but we're going to look at them in a little more detail. So we just discussed effective communication strategies to express how you're feeling. And also reflected on how your partner is feeling. So the strategies are helpful in resolving conflict. These are some things that you should avoid when trying to resolve a conflict. So do not do these things. The first is not to avoid the conflict itself. So rather than discussing the conflict, some individuals don't say anything to their partner until they've reached that boiling point. Often when we avoid conflict, we say hurtful things that we don't mean. Some individuals might think this is less stressful than actually dealing with the conflict, but rather avoiding the issue altogether can just create more stress and conflict, and it becomes the elephant in the room. It's also important not to get defensive. Rather than addressing a partner's complaints with a willingness to understand their point of view, defensive people will deny wrongdoing and will work hard to avoid looking at the possibility that they may have contributed to a problem. So denying responsibility and becoming offensive can create long-term problems because partners may not feel like they're being listened to. They don't feel validated. And then with that, the unresolved conflict will just continue to grow. So it comes back to the piece about being accountable. Also, try to avoid playing the blame game. So some people handle conflict by criticizing and blaming the other person for the situation. So it can be difficult for people to admit any weakness that they may have. It's important to assess the conflict objectively and look at the needs of the person involved and come up with a mutually equal solution. So really taking a step back and looking at all the factors at play. So trying your best to be objective. It's also important not to stonewall. This occurs when one person wants to discuss an issue or a conflict and the other person refuses to talk about it or refuses to listen to it from their partner. This shows not only disrespect for their partner, but it solves absolutely nothing and can potentially damage the relationship. So here we see the importance of validation and also the importance of identifying your partner's needs and concerns. So when thinking about conflict resolution, it's good to think about respect and how you would like your partner to, or how you would like to be treated by your partner. So that reciprocated respect. Sorry, I just need some water. Okay, so moving to the next slide is relationships and addiction. So relationships can be affected drastically by an addiction. So if one individual in the relationship is coping with an addiction, they often isolate themselves and disconnect from others. This can be done to hide their substance use or as a way of protecting their partner, family, or friend. The individual with the addiction may also push people away who are trying to help them, depending on where they are in terms of their stages of change and if they've identified that their substance use is a concern. Addiction can take over the relationship, such as it becomes the #1 priority and concern for both individuals involved. So I have another handout to review. When I do this SIS in person, I have clients complete it during the SIS and I review the content of it with them. For this format, I'm going to review the information on the handout. And then I encourage you after this SIS to take a look at it and use it as a reflection tool. So I'm just going to pull it up so that I can go through it with you. One moment. Just want to make sure I have the right one up. Okay, so we're going to look at the one that says healthy relationships. So I'm just going to read the descriptor to you. When you have a substance use issue, you may become isolated and disconnected from significant people in your life. But healthy relationships are especially important to your sense of self-worth and personal growth. In all relationships, including intimate ones, it's important to maintain appropriate personal boundaries. In other words, you have a right to your own unique feelings and personal needs. Boundaries are like a fence with a gate. You decide when and how to open the gate based on what you feel emotionally and physically. Pay attention to your thoughts, feelings, and immediate gut reactions. In healthy relationships, your needs and feelings are heard and respected. Taking care of others, rescuing, changing, or controlling other people can contribute to an imbalance in your relationship. Example of how you can take care of yourself includes telling yourself, I won't allow alcohol or other drugs in my home. I won't allow anyone to verbally abuse me. Or I won't lend money to anyone except my family members. Resources such as support groups, family services, and drop-in centers are easy to access and can support you in making good decisions and then help you improve your relationships with others. So good, healthy relationships are a fair exchange, as we mentioned, so that having that respect reciprocated. The cost to you should be about equal to the rewards. Keep in mind that the value of costs and rewards is personal. The value of something to one person may not be the same for the other. So looking at the practice exercise, great tool to reflect on areas of healthy relationships. So think about the current relationships in your life as you answer the questions. What kind of things do you value in a relationship? How have alcohol and other drugs affected your relationships? What do you need to change about your relationships in order to help you meet your goals for changing your use of alcohol and other drugs? Do you need to change those social relationships? Do you need to change where you're going? So pieces like that. What steps must you take to make these changes and to improve your relationships? What can you do differently to support this change? So like I mentioned, great tool to reuse as a reflection. I encourage you to do that once we get through the end of this information session, so that you can use some of the information that you gathered to support the changes you feel like you may need to make. Okay. Sorry, I'm just pulling my notes up again. Alrighty. Alrighty, so if we are looking at dating and recovery, a common question is, when do you talk about your substance use history? Many individuals have different views on when's the right time. However, there really is no correct answer to this. There's no correct answer, no right or wrong answer in terms of when to disclose the substance use history. The answer can be different for different people. It can depend on who you are, who you're dating at the time, those certain pieces. If you discuss your addiction too soon in a relationship, what could happen? Potentially the person you are dating may not want to be involved any further due to your addiction, or you may run the risk of being known as the person with the addiction and not just for who you really are. But what could happen if you disclose your addiction too late? The person might think you were hiding something from them and may not be able to trust you. Again, there really is no correct answer, but it's something to think about if you are thinking of starting a new relationship. This doesn't have to be just romantic relationships. Also, this can even just be for general friendships, because there can be inner conflicts of when to disclose this information, because there's fear it could affect the friendship and the relationship. I do have another handout for you to complete on your own time. It's called Sexual Relationships and Dating. I'm just actually going to go through some of it briefly with you, just so you know if you're wanting to look back on it yourself, just some guidance around that. So many people who have quit or cut down on their substance use find meeting people to date and having sexual relationships are big challenges. For some, alcohol or other drugs were a way to feel more confident with others. Also, many people have met their sexual partners by going to bars and clubs. Dating is challenging at the best of times. When dealing with substance use recovery at the same time, it can be possibly very frightening. So forming healthy relationships takes time and it takes effort. But there are ways to connect with others that don't involve alcohol and/or drugs. This exercise will help you think about and plan how you're going to go about trying some of these ways. People who are trying to quit using substances and want to date or start a sexual relationship often ask these kinds of questions. What does healthy dating mean? How and where do I meet people who don't misuse substances and are supportive of my recovery? How much information about my substance use should I tell someone I'm interested in? Many people who have substance use issues have also had difficulties having close relationships. So it's okay to choose not to focus on dating during this time. So what is healthy relationships? So this here again provides you with a checklist to go through in terms of healthy relationship characteristics. And then some suggestions around how to ask for a date. So, it can take a lot of courage to ask someone for a date, especially if you're not using alcohol or other drugs. So here are some simple ways and suggestions to kind of help you navigate that. For example, we see one, make eye contact and smile at the person. So not too invasive. Ask if he or she would like to join you. So being direct, whatever approach works best for you. So again, great suggestions on how to get a conversation started. When and how do I talk about my substance use history? So this final sheet here gives some suggestions around that. So I'll just read that through with you. You may want to wait until you've had a couple of dates with someone before you disclose information about your substance use history and recovery. However, once you've begun to get to know the person, it is important to be honest about what you are going through. So of course, there's always the possibility that the person will decide that he or she doesn't want to continue the relationship. But if so, it's better to know this sooner than later. So better to know it sooner in the relationship than further out into the relationship. Your willingness to be honest shows respect for the other person, as well as commitment to yourself and your recovery. So pick a time when you're both feeling relaxed and make sure the conversation happens in a private place where you aren't likely to be interrupted. So it can be a serious conversation that's had in privacy. You might want to start the conversation with a statement such as, "There's something on my mind that I've been concerned about telling you. I really like you, and I'm hoping that this doesn't get in the way of spending time together. It's a good time to talk a bit about this." So again, more suggestions and more tips. Also, part 4 of the worksheet says places to go and people to meet. So a practice exercise also could be very helpful for you. And then some tips for some success. Part 5 looks at what do you value in a relationship. So it's another exercise to look into. And then an important note on sexual health. So just like the other handouts, this is a great opportunity for you to reflect on these different areas and to maybe help identify some goals, some action plans for your goals, how you're going to go about meeting new individuals and things like that. Okay, sorry, I'm just bringing up my notes again. Alrighty. So another handout. I have one last handout for you on characteristics of healthy people and healthy relationships. It's called the Healthy Relationship Checklist. So it's a colorful sheet. Go through both sides of the checklist. On the left, it should say 9 traits of healthy people. And then on the right is healthy relationship checklist. So as you read each statement, circle any of the statements you would answer yes to or that you agree with that you have. This also is a great reference for you to have and to reflect on. There may be some attributes that you want to work towards to support a relationship that you currently have, or even to create some goals around how to develop certain self-characteristics so that you can have a successful relationship. So I often get individuals to do this again during the SIS and to provide some feedback and suggestions and some thoughts around the worksheet. But I'm just gonna get you to do that at home again. If you notice on the sheet, it says, if you answer yes to all of the questions below, you're able to have a healthy relationship. So does this mean if you don't answer yes to all the questions, you are not able to have a healthy relationship? No, not necessarily. The checklists allow you to recognize things that you may want to work on, as I mentioned, or recognize within your own relationship that might need to be adjusted. Okay. So just looking at the summary page, just to go over everything that we've discussed briefly. In summary, today we discussed characteristics of healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships. We also discussed effective communication strategies and how to resolve conflict within relationships. As a reminder, use I statements and discuss how you're feeling and why, and do not personally attack your partner or the other individual in the relationship. As you also use reflection to show your partner that you're listening to them. So as mentioned when we went over that handout, it might also be a good idea for you to write down your ideas or your concerns. You may want to do this to assist you with talking to your partner so that you don't forget the issue that you want to discuss, but it can also be helpful to write down your concerns and have your partner read it. It might be helpful also to set a time to talk. To set a time for talking so you know that you'll both be in a good mindset to do this. Compromise is also something to work on, but recognizing that it's okay to say no to your partner or to not agree on something. If you feel as though it will not be safe, like something your partner suggests wouldn't be safe, or it's something you're not comfortable with doing, if your partner respects you, they should be open to you refusing a suggestion. It's also important to work on one issue at a time and not to bring up things that have happened previously, because that can just make larger problems. So things that have already been addressed and dealt with in the past conflicts, we don't want to bring them into the present. And lastly, it's necessary to express your appreciation for the person after having a discussion. Even if you don't reach a resolution, that is okay. The reason you are having the conflict or the discussion with the person is because the person is someone you care about. You love this person, and you want to reach a resolution. So it's important to express your care, your appreciation, and your love for them. And then what if this doesn't work? So you've tried all these strategies and they do not work. There are supports available in London. I encourage you to connect with your counselor regarding these, such as Family Services of Thames Valley, if couples counseling or family counseling is something that you're needing to get connected with. Many other resources available as well. All right, so that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you for taking part in this presentation, and I hope the information provided has been helpful. I hope you all continue to stay safe and healthy during this time. As I mentioned, this presentation referred to a lot of handouts, so great opportunities for you to reflect and just something to do at home during this time that works on growth. Again, thank you and have a great day.